It's perfect that we're meeting here right now. Besides the greatest drought since 1942, we're meeting here as the annual allowable cut is coming down. The smelter is dysfunctional. We're losing sawmill jobs all over the place. The coal industry is, as the gentleman said, in crisis. It is up to us to take the responsibility to figure out the way out of this box. And the reason it's worth doing is because, as Mo Sahota said, it's the most gorgeous, the most perfect, and the most community-minded part of British Columbia, and it is as worth saving as we are.
The fact of the Columbia Basin Trust is based on actually a miracle of coincidence, that if any one of those pieces had been missing, we would never have built this thing.
It's kind of miraculous that it all did come together. I'm not sure one person pictured the whole thing. Collectively, all the factors fell into place in an interesting way, and darned if we didn't get this amazing result.
Everyone said, well, it's almost like this thing where all the stars seem to align.
For me, it started with watching political discussions on TV. And Grace McCarthy said that the monies from the dams, the extra monies that we would be getting from the United States would go all into the provincial coffer, but she never mentioned nothing about any local monies. I almost lost a television through that, and said, this isn't going to happen.
When the Columbia Basin dams were built, there was promises made to this region. Some of the brochures put out by BC Hydro in the province showed the types of industries that it would attract. And so when the downstream benefits were being announced that they're going to come back to the province of British Columbia because they were originally sold for 30 years, the region said it's time to deal with these impacts. These promises that were made have never come to fruition.
We saw the destruction that went on by other people to the river that destroyed the salmon that came into our region. That was totally in opposition to anything that we would believe in. If you affect one living thing, which is a river, and the fish, the effects are all the way down the line.
And the dust storms ended up being a health hazard for everyone living here. The mayor, Fred Demon from Golden, heard me on the radio on CBC. Then he phoned Josh Smink, and Josh Smink phoned me and asked if we would like to be included with just the formation of this Columbia River Treaty Committee that they were going to start. When the Fraser-Fort George Regional District came on side, that's when the entire basin came together. We were a group now.
And then everyone was saying, don't forget us. If you were going to do something, we're on board. We're going to work together on this.
We didn't really know what we wanted, so we had to get a mandate from the residents on what exactly we wanted. That is a lot of what the symposiums were about.
And I suppose our committee was committed to making certain that deals like this did not happen in the future with the repatriation or the sale of the downstream benefits, but rather that the community representatives such as yourself actually participate in the decision-making process, and that's why we're here today.
Because 30 years ago, those politicians thought they were making great decisions for the people of the future.
It wasn't just a bunch of municipal people whining that they didn't have enough money to fix their ball field or pave their roads. It was Caucasian and First Nations peoples coming together, which had not on any other subject ever happened here, to say the treaty is the central issue of our life, really.
So we were saying, like, how do we get involved in the way that there's a recognition of the damage that has been done, of what's been taken away from the Ktunaxa, and how do we bring that discussion to the table? And quite frankly, is anyone even prepared to listen to that?
I'm happy to see people gather here. I invite you into my country. Thank you.
Because you have to remember, this was way before the vocabulary of reconciliation was even considered.
You sit at a table with a union person and someone from social housing. Just couldn't help, but gradually people begin to work more effectively together.
That's the level, the grassroots level, but it's not just one person's opinion that counts. It's the interaction of people's opinions that count.
And it showed, I think, Victoria, that the region absolutely was able to manage what might be provided to them.
It just seemed normal at the time, but I guess when you look back on it, it was quite extraordinary that we could foster that big of a conversation.
You get a big room in the High Arrow in Castlegar or up in Cranbrook or something. And some of these people are the people who were flooded out and burned out. And they're going, will you give me back my farm?
I've been waiting for 25 years for this opportunity, and I think I better make use of it.
Well, in the 25 years of the trust, I would say it's the most emotional conversation I have been part of. I'm in a room and the chair goes, okay, shall we do recompense or shall we do the future? And the people in the room chose some kind of future vision. Set the tone, really, of what became the trust.
Mr. Speaker, nothing today can right the wrongs done 30 years ago. We cannot go back and open the ears of the government of the day that would not listen to the people of the region, that would not consider the desires or dignity of those whose lives were about to be flooded under. We cannot replace the farmlands lost, the timber stands wasted, the homes and communities that were destroyed. What we can do today is offer the people of the Columbia-Kootenay region the opportunity and the tools to build a new foundation.
We recognize that there is the strength that comes from the land, and that together, working together as human beings that are here on this land, that we can do good things.
We were trying to figure out how to enact that principle that people who deal with the ongoing impacts of something to provide a benefit for the whole get a share of those impacts back to them to deal with those impacts. That's just a simple and frankly fair principle in society. We all talked about, yeah, we think we need legislation. So we kind of all looked at each other and we said, well, no, why don't we write our own legislation? So we did.
It was an amazing gall, right? Like, they hired a lawyer to write a law, not a paper, but a law. And the law said what would be created.
This was more an opportunity for people of the Basin and for the people on the CRTC team to try and build a consensus about what is right, and then to convince the provincial government that that was right.
I still remember Gary saying, we can never out-bureaucrat the bureaucrats. We need them to believe in us, believe in what we're doing, and join us.
This accord, this trust you're about to vote on, is to say, do we believe that a bunch of people out there on the land can decide for themselves what is the best thing to do in the decades to come to mitigate the decisions that people made in here? Thanks a lot, Honorable Speaker.
We were negotiating for about 15 months before the Columbia Basin Accord was signed. It was quite something because so many people of this region have been waiting for so long for something to happen.
And that was a particularly emotional moment. And there was just so much gratitude that we were actually going to finally deal with this issue.
I always looked at what's the end result? What are we trying to accomplish here? And we're trying to accomplish to get enough money to make it a significant legacy.
Order, please. The honorable members, the question is third reading of Bill 7, Columbia Basin Trust Act. All those in favor, please stand.
When the day of the legislation passed, it was absolutely exciting because we have reached this milestone now.
We have a picture of us all standing on the steps of the legislature. We actually had our first meeting of the trust in the legislature, in a little room once the bill was passed. How much of this was sheer kind of willpower and how much of it was luck? You got to be good to be lucky.
There are an awful lot of people in the region who are extremely well versed in the history and have a good sense of what's right.
In my lifetime, I found that those things that make sense are what you need to pursue. So that's the trust.
It allowed the people to write their own laws on their own tablets that they brought down from their own mountains. Nothing like that has happened in Canada before.
I think the moral of the story is, okay, local people can make it work, and they didn't screw up. Those folks now can point to this institution called the Columbia Basin Trust and say, 25 years.
We never expected to get where we got, and so never discount your dreams.